Hi everybody and welcome to the Hungary Grand Prix review for the Winging It F1 podcast. Before we get on to talking about Lewis Hamilton's victory today, we just want to give a moment to talk about the news that's been going around the motorsport Twitter community, the social media community and motorsport journalism community over this weekend. Obviously there's been quite a few revelations that have come out, and we just wanted to say well done to all of the brave women who have spoken out over the weekend about the sexual harassment and the disgusting actions that men in motorsport journalism and social media have taken to use their position of power to harass young women is just abhorrent, basically. And to have the courage to speak out about what is clearly a very difficult topic is incredibly brave, and the fact that so many have is even better. It started a motorsport Me Too movement, and it's only the start, but it's start of a much better community.
Yeah, really well said. I'd echo everything you said. It's disgusting that it's happened, and it's at least heartening to see the kind of support of the vast majority of the community for the people who have spoken out and people who haven't yet but might be considering it.
Yeah, it's just been incredible. Like you said, Adam, with the support that's been shown over the weekend, and hopefully justice can be done, because this kind of thing is just not on, really, and hopefully it can improve. And whoever, if anyone has done anything like what has been talked about over the weekend, then we find out in the future and something can be done.
Completely. We're all fans of motorsport, Formula One, Formula E, whatever. And we all come here for solace, and we want our community to be a good place for us. And we want that for everyone. And if this will make it better for everyone. So well done. Just well done to all the brave people who've come forward. So yes, yeah. So we'll move on to the Grand Prix now. After that note, and it promised a lot as an entertainment factor. It failed to live up to a lot of it. We had basically a virtuoso performance from Lewis Hamilton. He got pole this weekend in a blistering Mercedes. He led nearly every lap. Just the pit stop phases at the start that he didn't, and he set the fastest lap at the end. He didn't come under any challenge, really. He just, everything that was thrown at him, he nailed. Nigel, what do you think?
Just incredible, really. I think we said before, if Hamilton sticks it on pole and he leads after the first lap, he's nearly unbeatable, really. And what did he win by? 20 seconds? Oh no, he pitted, didn't he? But he would have been 20
9 seconds.
Yeah, he probably would have been 20, 30 seconds ahead if he didn't pit it at the end for the fastest lap. And it's just incredible to see the pace that they have. This Mercedes car is just one of the best cars in F1 history. It's got, in terms of downforce, the engine, the way it rides the curbs, the tyres, everything about it. It's just the best in the whole field. So no wonder no one can get close to it, especially in qualifying. The raw pace they have, it's just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, in qualifying, the only car that got within a second was Lance Stroll, who was, I think, 9/10 away. And we know all the conversation that's gone on about that car as well. I don't need to go into that anymore. Adam, what do you think about his performance and Mercedes as a whole at the moment?
I mean, especially Hamilton, he's pretty close to unbeatable. They've given him a car, and they've given both drivers a car that is way ahead of the rest of the field, and Hamilton's able to extract all the performance there is from it, and the team's able to do their job in terms of the race weekend perfectly as well, and give him the platform to be able to put in the best performance he can. It's just everything kind of working perfectly and harmoniously in one, and it is very impressive to see, as much as it's not kind of, in terms of race fans, maybe what we want, to see Hamilton winning by 30 seconds, with the pit stops added in. But, just in terms of looking at it and appreciating what a feat of engineering and teamwork and driving it is, it is absolutely stunning. And like Nigel said, it's one of the great F1 cars of all time.
If you get a chance just to keep watching that Hungarian pole lap over and over again, it's a great track as it is to watch a car on the edge and at full pelt, and the Mercedes just looked insane around that qualifying session. They stayed on board for a lot of the pole lap for Lewis Hamilton on the live world feed, and that was one of the best decisions they could have made as directors, because you could just see how much he could commit to every corner, every line with full throttle. And then when he had to go off the throttle, he could get onto the throttle so hard with such steering lock. It was just brilliant. The car is so drivable, it's so user-friendly, and it just gets better every year for them. And I mean, they're unstoppable, Mercedes, at the moment. I echo what you said. Yeah, they look unbeatable. But one man who did come close to any form of challenge today was, quite unexpectedly, Max Verstappen, who, if you look at the charts at the end, finished in second place, held off Valtteri Bottas on the last lap of the race, and got driver of the day. If I'm not mistaken, Verstappen was in the wall in the formation laps, so
yeah,
that's a pretty decent performance for him too.
I mean, he was very lucky to even start the race, and a massive well done to his mechanics for fixing the tyre rod. I think it was they had to fix, because I thought they wouldn't be able to do it, but they did. The car stayed intact for the whole race, and Verstappen was just exceptional once again. The start he got, he threw it in down the inside in the damp conditions into turn one, got into third, and then his race pace was just phenomenal, really, compared to Albon, his teammate. And yeah, he managed to hold off Bottas, unlike last year when he failed to hold off Hamilton. And it was just a great drive in the race from Max.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. He was never going to challenge Hamilton. I don't think that was ever on. But yeah, stunning from him, and all the. I think if there could be a team driver, a driver of the day, then it'd be the Red Bull mechanics who got it sorted. But yeah, great job to hold off Bottas. I can't help feeling if it was Lewis in the same position, he would have made the pass, possibly with a few laps to go.
Last year, just like last year.
Yeah. So, but it's a good drive. He can only beat what's ahead and behind him, and the Mercedes is a great car, as we've said. But the one asterisk is that at the moment Verstappen's kind of extracting all he can from the Red Bull, and he's managing to be about on par with Bottas in this race, at least.
Yeah, completely. And the Red Bull they've actually had, despite the second place being their best result of the year so far, they had a pretty naff weekend coming up to this. They qualified 7th with Verstappen and I think 13th with Albon. And the car just looked all over the place coming into the race. So to get second place from that and 5th place for Albon is going to be treated as a very, very strong race day for Red Bull.
Yeah, it's disappointing. I was going to say it's disappointing in a way to see that they're happy with second place, because there was so much expectation going into this weekend. I believe Red Bull have had to go back to the pre-season testing aero package that they had because the upgrades have just not worked. So then, yeah, it's definitely championship over for them, unfortunately. But yeah, they salvaged a result. But I think they'll be disappointed because there was so much hype and expectation about them, in pre-season testing and coming into Austria and then coming into Hungary. But unfortunately, it looks like Mercedes are miles ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much of the hype pre-season kind of was actually justified in terms of what they'd shown. I think Ferrari last season showed a lot more in testing than Red Bull did this year in terms of that they'd be Mercedes challenger. I think some of it will have been, kind of fans looking for wanting to find a challenger to Mercedes and picking Red Bull. But yeah, they'll be probably disappointed, if you're giving them this result to them on Thursday, I don't know whether they would have taken it actually. But yeah, I think they're out of the championship fight. But Verstappen still, seems to be clear of anyone else in the pack and able to stand up to Bottas. So I think, and especially given where they were 25 seconds before the formation lap, I think they'll be very pleased with that.
Yeah, Nigel? I was going to say, I think for once, it's not the engine that's the problem with Red Bull. Yes, they don't quite have the engine power of Mercedes, but it's simply the aero and the suspension. They don't have the downforce of the Mercedes, and we can see that in the middle and the last sectors of the Hungarian ring where it's very twisty. The Red Bull just is not as drivable. It's not as comfortable for the drivers really. And yeah, they've got a high rake concept, so then the rear of the car is much higher than the front, which is very different to the Mercedes. And they still have Adrian Newey on board, and I'm just wondering if the high rake concept is maybe outdated in a way, and they're not able to extract the performance from it that they're expecting. But yeah, I'm just getting a bit over technical now.
No, it's great. I mean, you go, Adam.
Yeah, do you think in some ways it was good for Albon that he didn't make it out of Q2 and was kind of able to push that onto the team a bit? Because if he'd had the race, been in the race and kind of, been off the pace of the top three again, that might have kind of brought out more alarm bells or, kind of critics, whereas he fought his way up to 5th from 13th on the grid. People will look at that more than kind of his outright pace compared to his teammate and the Mercedes.
Christian Horner said on Sky, pretty much, he was their first interview after the race, I think, one of them. And he issued kind of an apology to Albon, said they went the wrong way with their strategy on Saturday, and that they've gone a better route today. And so that they're being Red Bull patient with him rather than Red Bull cutthroat, which is what is normally Red Bull patience. And I think I don't think it really hid Albon's deficits to Verstappen, but it definitely gives more to the fact that it's a hard car to drive, I think. I don't think you can hide behind a bad car when there's another driver still performing better than you.
Yeah, I think to answer your question, Adam, yes, his race pace was lacking to Verstappen. Yes, he made overtakes, got into 5th place. Red Bull will still see that ultimately he didn't have the pace of Max, and that deficit that they're going to be thinking, is that too big for us? Do we need to replace him? Because yes, I do think his racecraft and some of the overtakes he made were very good, and he's doing much better than Pierre Gasly did in that area. So yeah, racecraft is good, but it's just race pace again that's hurting Albon. And in that Silverstone or in the next few races, when he does start 6th or 5th, we're going to see, everyone's going to see that huge deficit that he has to Verstappen in the races, unfortunately, and it won't be hidden.
Yeah, so we spoke about Albon a lot on the previous podcast. At risk of getting bogged down in the Albon conundrum once again, let's move it quickly on to third place man Valtteri Bottas, who we haven't really spoken about when we spoke about Mercedes. Now, the big question with Valtteri Bottas at the start of the race was whether he got a jump start. And
yes,
in some of the analysis, it looked like he wasn't out of the box before the red lights went off, but he was still moving. And I think he did get a jump start. I want to see what you guys think.
I definitely thought he did. How he didn't get a penalty is just crazy, really. Like, I mean, that literally takes 10 seconds to look at. Is yes or no. But we didn't hear anything. I don't know. Was it investigated? I think it was noted, but it wasn't. Yeah, I think it was noted, but it wasn't investigated by the stewards. So, but to me, it looks like it was a clear penalty. So I'm not sure what the stewards were thinking, to be honest. Again,
it gave the impression that they gave a bit of a perspective that, well, he tried to stop it and then was 6th or 7th at the end of lap 1, and that's a dangerous precedent for the stewards.
Yeah, I think they based it. Well, the only thing I can think of is that they based it off outcome of he didn't gain an advantage from it. And I don't think that's. I think outcome can have an element in it, but I don't think that should be kind of the main factor in whether a penalty is given or not. But yeah, in the end, I don't know what the penalties are. Is it 5 seconds?
Drive-through, I think. For me, it would have been a drive-through. Yeah.
So that could have affected the result. It's impossible to know now, but that could have.
Yeah, because if you got it early on in the race, he would have been pushed back into the pack, and then he would have had to come through the field. And as we saw a little bit, Bottas struggled to get past Lance Stroll at one point. He was behind Stroll for, I think, 6 or 7 laps, which is quite surprising, really, in what is the best car on the grid. And I think, I talked about last week, that's the area where Bottas struggles. He struggles to make overtakes and make it happen quickly. He spends too much time in traffic and he isn't brave enough. So that's an area where Bottas lacks compared to Hamilton, for example.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, I think after this weekend, I'd be ready to write off his title challenge now.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
He's only just ahead on points by about 2 or 3, I think.
Yeah, but he's got, it didn't all come together for Lewis in the first race, but he kind of, seems to have rectified a lot of those issues now, and I don't see Bottas being able to challenge really at all. He'll pick up wins, I think, but I think for me, it's kind of his title challenge is over.
I think if Bottas is going to continue to qualify a 10th away of Lewis Hamilton around Hamilton's most successful ever track, then you can't write him off after race 3.
I think it's going to take some bad luck. And I think Bottas in qualifying is very strong. In fact, he's probably one of the best qualifiers out there. He's just obviously losing out to Hamilton, but his race paces were where he lacks, really. And when he's not leading, he struggles to come through. And we saw last year in a similar situation, Hamilton pitted onto new tyres and then caught and overtook Verstappen at the end, whereas Bottas, same situation this year. In fact, well, it was even better for Bottas because I think the car deficit between Mercedes and Red Bull this year, Mercedes had a much better car than Red Bull compared to last year. And obviously Bottas wasn't able to do it.
It seems to be consistently switching between he'll close in a few laps to, oh no, he's just saving his tyres. Oh, he'll close in a few laps. Oh no, he won't. And then it's like, oh, it's the last lap of the race now and he's still not got past. Oh, and it left a lot to be desired again, like the race, really, frankly.
I think it's kind of those types of situations that are your championship moments. And I just don't, like leading from pole, like, he's done before and he can do that. That's all good. But, the championship moments of where, you can pinpoint, a few laps where there's a swing of, several points, like it was today. I just don't think he got it in him in the same way, or kind of anywhere near the same way that Lewis does, really. That's my analysis.
I think we'll probably speak a lot more about Bottas next week when we do our podcast that sort of is wrapping up the triple header when there's finally not a race on, so we can actually talk about some of these talking points. There's been so much news going on, and we've had to mix it up with race reports, race previews. So we're going to have a big big get together for all of the news in a week's time, and we can discuss championship hopes for Bottas there and really delve into it. Another team that's been very, very discussed for the whole of this season is Racing Point, and Lance Stroll had a bit of a mega weekend, I think. Qualifying third, out qualifying his esteemed teammate Perez, and finishing in fourth place with a very strong drive, I think. What do you guys think, Adam?
Yeah, it's. I feel like he's been slept on a bit. Kind of when people talk about Racing Point, they seem to kind of massively focus on Perez, but I think Stroll he's historically had decent race pace in not very competitive cars, or at least compared to the level of this year. But yeah, it was a great weekend for him here, and he deserves it. Really, there wasn't, from what I can remember, there wasn't kind of any major controversies. All the conversation was off his move on Ricciardo last week, really. So yeah, great weekend for him, and we'll just have to see if he can carry it on. Was it an off weekend for Perez, or is this a more representative representation of where things are at with Stroll? But yeah, great weekend and adding to the midfield fight.
Yeah, a little bit like Bottas. He struggled to get past I think it was Magnussen at one point. He just struggles with racecraft. But I think for me, Stroll has really improved with qualifying this year, because the last few years he struggled to get out of Q1. And yes, he had a bad car, but Perez managed to get out of Q1. He didn't. But this year, it seems that Stroll has really stepped it up, which is great to see. And if he can carry on like this, then he's fully justifying his seat, because there's obviously talk about him, he shouldn't be on the grid, etc., etc. But yeah, it was a great weekend, and I hope he can carry on doing this throughout the season.
Yeah, completely. I think going on from what Adam said about an off weekend for Perez, there were some reports in the media that he has been feeling dizzy going around lots of short racetracks, and I think that kind of makes sense when you're not in an F1 race for whatever it is, 10 months. Then you get thrown into 3 in 3 weeks around short tracks with quite high speed corners. You're going to really feel that. And I think Perez, he was very candid about the fact that he did feel it and was feeling very dizzy in qualifying. So I think Stroll just did a better job this weekend, and that's it, frankly.
Yeah, Perez has just been a little bit off the last two weekends or so, and yeah, we know he definitely has the pace. I think we can expect podiums for Racing Point at some point this season, hopefully quite a few. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Perez can improve, because I think we all expect him to outperform Stroll when they're both on good form. But this weekend he didn't manage to do that.
I mean, to be fair, I was thinking, it's been an underwhelming start to the season from Perez, but I've just checked, and he, sixth place, and seventh is not. It's pretty good,
they've got the second best car, though, or second or third best car.
Locking out the second row.
Yeah,
the grid, you'd expect. I mean, they have got. I don't think there's Stroll, but you'd expect a bit more, I'd say.
I don't think there's that much of a margin between them and McLaren, and I think Red Bull are a bit ahead of them. But I think, considering he has had potentially a couple of off weekends, and the Steering Grand Prix looked very good, but obviously started from the back of the grid pretty much, and he was on for fourth. He'd had a good race and kind of looked like he could get fourth, which would change the conversation a bit. But I think that haul, he's sixth in the championship. It's not. I don't think it's been, kind of maybe over egging it a bit. I'd say.
Just for me, I am expecting more, because they look.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Like, this weekend they look like the second. They looks like they had the second fastest car in the dry. Yes, Verstappen managed to have an incredible performance in the race, but yeah, that's the reason why I was expecting more, really. And Perez just was fighting with the Ferraris and the Renaults when for me he should have been up further ahead with the car he's got.
He should have been controlling the midfield rather than getting swallowed up by it.
Yeah, and
I think
I
so
think
too.
I think the strategy though, because everyone pitted quite early. I'm not sure, did he have a slow stop maybe or something? Because we saw Vettel, he had a slow stop which hurt his race. So yeah, and obviously Hungary is a tough track to overtake on. So Perez, I think he got stuck in traffic, which hampered him. So yeah, but for me, I just want to see. I want to see Racing Point get podiums because in the first race they had a big chance, and they will get chances later on in this year.
And another team that sort of had promised a lot for this race based on their previous form this year is McLaren, and yet they also failed to impress really. I think it was P10 for Carlos Sainz with a pretty decent move on an ailing Charles Leclerc at the end of the race, and it was a P13 for Lando Norris, who after a podium and a fifth place for Norris in the past race and fastest lap for Sainz in the previous race, do you think this is a sort of a crashing back down to earth situation for McLaren?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. All we're basing off is up till this weekend was one track. So if you went off, last year's Austrian Grand Prix, you'd say, oh, Mercedes are out of it completely, and you kind of it's quite a small sample size that we were taking stuff from. So yeah, I think it's not. They just, I think this track just didn't suit them really. In terms of where they've ended up, it's been not a great start for Sainz. I know he did get fastest lap, but he's got a fifth, ninth, and 10th. So yeah, I think it wasn't a great weekend from start to finish. They didn't really blow anyone away, but they're tied with Racing Point at the moment in the constructors, and Silverstone, closer to the Red Bull Ring than the Hungarian. So there's hopefully do a bit better there for them. But yeah, it kind of looked. And last season they went better at the Hungarian as well. So yeah, it was just an off weekend for McLaren, and I guess they'll just move on and try to forget about it.
Mm-hmm. I think McLaren have got a good car because the drivers seem to be handling it well. The way it's going through the turns, it's like the Mercedes. Really, it looks like it's on rails. Obviously, it's not going as fast for them or fast as they want, but it looks like they've got a good suspension, a good chassis, so that should stand them in good stead for the rest of the season. I think in Austria, or the last two races before this weekend, they maximised results really, so they couldn't have done much better. Whereas this weekend, it's kind of brought them back down to earth, and yeah, it's just going to be such a tight fight in the midfield, and McLaren need to make sure that they maximise results when they can, and hopefully they won't have too many weekends like today.
Yeah, and from one old great team to another, Ferrari, they had a decent qualifying, 5th and 6th, which is actually pretty good for where people think that car is. Just the third best team on the day on Saturday. Vettel finished 6th, Leclerc finished 11th. It seemed to be sort of strategy which prevented them from getting any higher, and a mistake from Vettel at the end to let Albon by. But other than that, I don't think the drivers could have done anything to get really any higher.
Yeah,
Nigel?
Vettel lost 10 seconds in his first stop, which put him back into traffic. If the pit stop wasn't that long, he would have been up ahead, and he probably would have got 5th, maybe even 4th. And for Leclerc, for some reason, Ferrari put him on the soft tyres, thinking that they would be faster with that strategy. It turned out not to be, so then he had to pit quite early again for hards, and that kind of ruined his race really, and he was always having to defend from drivers who had fresher tyres. So yeah, I think Ferrari made some mistakes with their strategy today, but
Sure.
the drivers couldn't have done much more.
Adam, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think it looked like they went with Leclerc on the softs because they expected rain to be coming. There was kind of rain imminent, but it was imminent for the whole race and didn't really turn up. So I think that was it. He really struggled on them, couldn't get them going. But it was a good performance for Vettel to come 6th, kind of in ahead of the Racing Point and ahead of a few other kind of midfield teams, which is where we think they're at, Renault and McLaren. It's a good result for him, and like you say, could have very easily been sixth had not lost it at the end. So yeah, I think it's not positive in terms of where the car seems to be at, but I think a positive result for Vettel, and sixth place, pretty good for Ferrari.
Seems to be a bit more drivable now, the car. These upgrades they seem to that they brought in the second Austrian race, we didn't really see so much of them, but they seem to have made the car a bit more drivable compared to the snappy, aggressive dog of a car from the first race of the year.
We saw 2 corners off them in Austria, and then
yes.
and then that was it. But going back to Silverstone, which is a bit more of a power-heavy track, then I think that's where we'll see whether they've actually made any improvements since Austria.
Yeah, I was just going to say exactly the same thing. We'll talk about it next time, I'm sure, how Ferrari will get on at these high-speed tracks, because Hungary, really looking at the calendar so far, it's by far the most high downforce track. So then it's unrepresentative of what's going to happen for the rest of the season with so many high-speed tracks coming up: Spain, Silverstone, Spa, Monza.
Yeah. One team that did actually put on a bit of a show today was the Haas team, and with the wet race start, when they start, so it was a bit of a roller coaster on tyres for Haas. They started the formation lap with Grosjean on intermediates, I think, Magnussen on full wets, which looking back was just completely bizarre. And then at the end,
trying to catch the whole field out.
Oh, there's more rain coming. Oh, yes, it's not there yet. It's still not there. And
it never came at all.
Never came. I mean, it'll probably become tomorrow. And then at the end of the formation lap, at the end of the formation lap, they're both pitted for slicks. And I don't know, at first, when I saw the spray going down into turn one, you couldn't see beyond sixth place, really. I thought, well, bold. Probably a bit too early. And, you could see them going around and they weren't making much progress. And then everyone else started pitting and Haas suddenly a third and fourth. And straight away, Sky Sports went and spoke to Günther Steiner, because you would. And they put on a pretty good showing. They made a strategy gamble, and Magnussen finished in the points. So I think all round, they maximised what they could do with a slightly more unpredictable start to the race.
Yeah. It was a brave decision to go onto slicks at the end of the formation lap, but it definitely paid off. And Magnussen, I thought, had a great race. He really maximised everything there, and it's great to see. It would be interesting to see what he could do in a better car, really. But yeah, points on the board. Will they get more this season? Maybe not. So this could be the only points that Haas get this year. Hopefully not, obviously, for them. But yeah, it was a great strategy call. I was surprised that more drivers didn't start on slicks, actually, because the track wasn't that wet. But that's just me.
I think AlphaTauri didn't allow Kvyat to do that.
I think they... Yeah. Well, I mean, the only way, I think Haas aren't going to get many points finishes on pace. So, it's going to be those kind of races where they take a gamble and it pays off. But, fair play to them for that. And Magnussen has actually, he looks like he's got the beating of Grosjean quite convincingly, I thought. He has looked quite good to start the season on. So, yeah, I think he's been doing well, and, kind of got the dividends of that this weekend. But yeah, it was a very bizarre start, but they'll be very happy to get some points on the board. And I don't think that's representative of where they are in terms of pace, but they did kind of hold off, because it looked, when Magnussen was slipping down, it looked like the Sainz Leclerc battle would be, the next one to catch him, and he managed to hold off from that. So, it wasn't just a case of, they took a gamble and it paid off, and then, that was it. He did drive very well, and yeah, so positive weekend for Magnussen.
Does anyone have any quick words on Renault they'd like to say? I think Daniel Ricciardo finishing the points seems to be all they could do, I think. Ocon finished 14th. I don't think they could really have done any more. They did push a bit of a strategy with Ricciardo to try and bring him on with faster tyres at the end. I think 8th place is sort of the best they could have done.
Yeah, they seem to be kind of off the mid. They don't seem to be kind of on Racing Points level, and yeah, they're a bit set back. But you know, eighth place is all right. Kind of.
Yeah, I think Renault's going to be disappointed really, because we've come to two very different tracks, and they haven't managed to be at the head of the midfield battle, which is where they want to be. That's their target this year. But it seems like they don't quite have it. Esteban Ocon as well, with his return, hasn't quite been able to be with Daniel Ricciardo. So I think he'll be disappointed, really. And I think Renault, they're going to have to start asking some questions, because yet again, we've all been hoping that it's finally, they can move up the grid and maybe nick a podium or two. But it looks like they don't have the car again. So it's a big shame, really. And hopefully we can see some improvement, but it's looking a bit doubtful now, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we can do a deep dive into this a bit more next week on Renault, but they've got Ocon's kind of the face with Ricciardo leaving. Ocon's going to be the face of them, or is meant to be the face of them moving forward. And he could have been in a Mercedes this season. Bottas has a poorer start to last season, or some of the things fall a different way. He could be in the Mercedes, but yeah, it's just not. He was pretty hyped, his return to F1, considering how he'd done against Perez, and he's just not kind of shown himself to be on that level, really. So disappointing for him. We'll just have to see how it goes moving forward.
So AlphaTauri had not the best weekend, I'd say. Pierre Gasly had probably the weekend from hell, with basically technical issues in every session, and then retiring from the race with technical issues. There's not really much to say to that, otherwise very ready for a week off, I'd say. Daniel Kvyat, he asked to come in for slicks at the end of the formation lap and didn't. I think that's the biggest missed opportunity for points from any team of this race. What do you guys think, Nigel?
Yeah, definitely a massive opportunity missed there with Danny Kvyat, and all the midfield teams. Williams, Alfa, and AlphaTauri, they all missed a chance to get some points on the board, really. Gasly, it's not good for Honda, is it, if they're still suffering these kind of issues? Because it's been 5 years since they came into 6 years, and to suffer problems in every single session, that doesn't look good. And I think we can expect some big issues for Red Bull maybe in the future. Hopefully not, and hopefully Honda can get on top of them. But Gasly was really unlucky, and he did quite well though, because he got into Q3.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah,
he got into Q3, then couldn't run.
Yeah, so he had good pace.
I was about to say that he did get into Q3 and ahead of Ricciardo, Russell, Albon. There's good drivers in there. So he was showing good pace, and he was fast, and I think, and he was in the top 10 in Q1 as well. So he did have the pace, and I think he's kind of in that midfield. I think Alfa are just behind the kind of Renault, McLaren, Racing Point, Ferrari group, but Gasly and AlphaTauri do seem to be, able to kind of still mix it in with that, in terms of driver pace and kind of team management. So, that's a good sign. But yeah, in terms of the race, it was nothing to write home about, really. I guess they'll move on to Silverstone and see how they go there.
Williams qualifying was something to write home about, though. They got both cars They got both cars into Q2, with Russell in 12th, I think just under 0.2 off Q3, and Latifi then ending up 15th. But that's that's their best qualifying since 2018, and a step forward for the team, you'd hope. And it all looked up at the start for Latifi, running 10th, which is brilliant. But then it seemed to unravel. Latifi got an unsafe release in the pit stops, and he just trusted the team, and then basically came sideways into Carlos Sainz, got a puncture and spun at the first corner, and then kudos to him for completing the race. But it became a bit of a race that sort of was one to finish rather than to compete in for Latifi after that. He could have been saved by a safety car early on, but there wasn't one. So a few spins later on, he finished quite a few laps down, with Russell, the only car ahead, also far behind.
Yeah, it's not from Williams. It's like, it's to be celebrated that they're getting into Q2, and Russell does seem to have good pace and all of that, but they're still kind of not looking near getting any points so far. They're not on it in the race, and they don't seem to be able to extract the maximum from each race. So yeah, it's a step forward, but there's still a lot to be desired from their overall weekend performance.
It's very encouraging to see that Williams do have good pace in qualifying, but again, just the race pace isn't quite there. But the fact that they both have got into Q2 is a very good step, considering that the team might be sold. I don't think it has been sold yet, but it might be. And the sponsor losses and what they've been through over the last 2 or 3 years. So that's good to see. It looks like they haven't quite understood the car, the tyres. These Pirelli tyres are so fickle, really, and they're so hard to understand. And it looks like Williams still haven't managed to get on top of that. I think they had those kind of issues last year, and that still seems to be the problem for them. But I think there's good signs coming from Williams.
I mean, they've qualified 12th, 13th, and 15th over the last 2 races, but they've finished. They're always finishing kind of last and second last, pretty much. So it's kind of yin and yang signs off that.
Yeah, another team who are in a bit of a sore situation is Alfa Romeo. Seem to be the only teams that seem to be fighting normally Haas and Williams, and didn't take the gamble and were sort of stuck at the back. Kimi Raikkonen, for the first time in his near 20-year Formula One career, qualified 20th, plumb last. And I think that says all we need to know about Alfa Romeo. Didn't really see them on TV. It just kind of happened.
He got a 5-second time penalty, didn't he, for not starting in his box or something? I think.
Oh, yeah. I think the Haas drivers running away from the grid probably confused him a bit, which is makes sense a bit. It would confuse me.
Yeah. I mean, there's not much to say for Alfa, really. They're similar to Haas, I guess. They're both in the same boat of it's not, well, the Ferrari engine doesn't help for a start. 20 kilometers per hour down in the speed traps. But yeah, they just don't quite have the pace.
Yeah, saved by Germany's first race in Austria, I think, a bit in terms of points for the season.
Yeah.
They're in the same boat of Haas in terms of, where they are, like you said, kind of in the Class C battle with Ferrari engines, but there's just no talking points, really. Well, I guess there's kind of a driver market one, but, compared to Haas, where, there is a conversation about them after most races, and whereas Alfa, it's, there's just nothing. There's just nothing to kind of say, really. But yeah, good points finish in Austria, but after that, not great.
They seem to be in this situation a couple of years ago and sort of slipping into the backmarker team. And they did pick themselves up and brush themselves off and prove that they are an outfit who can be reckoned with. And I think they're still there as an outfit who can be reckoned with. I think they've got to be careful, though, they don't slip back into a backmarker role, because they are currently probably the slowest car on actual pace on the grid. And I think it's
you think it's slower than the Williams?
I think by luck rather than judgment, they got ahead today.
Okay.
I think the drivers don't kind of help in terms of you looking at the other teams. They've got Williams have got Russell, Haas have got Magnussen, Alfa have got Gasly. If they had Leclerc in the car like they did a few years ago, I think they'd be in a better position for kind of mixing it a bit higher up, or having battles and maybe scraping into the points a couple of times when they can. But I don't think there's much to get excited about the driver lineup, and there certainly isn't kind of one that blows you away or seems to be in the same class as the ones I mentioned from the other teams they're fighting.
I think you're right with that, Adam. It doesn't seem like there's a driver that the team can really gel around to galvanise themselves into that extra push. But I don't really know how much that would change the quality of the car and the quality of the race, because like you say, Russell's there and at Williams, and it's not Russell who's built that car to improve it. Williams who've improved that car from last year.
But I think being able to take advantage of that, the other teams have got drivers who can kind of take advantage or get everything out of the car in a way that I don't think Giovinazzi or Kimi can at the moment. But we can talk more about that next time.
Yes, let's plug that again.
Who might be there next season? Yes,
that's a very good point to bring up. We think Alfa Romeo is the unspoken so far key team in the driver market, with the Ferrari Junior program in Formula 2 being so busy. There's got to be something happening there. But we're not going to talk about that now. We're going to talk about our predictions from a couple of days ago, actually, for this Grand Prix.
Dear.
And we had no idea what we were talking about. But let's have a look.
As usual.
I think we did pretty decent. I went boring and said Hamilton to get pole and win, and then Leclerc to get sixth. And I got the two Hamilton predictions right, and in my mind it was a toss-up. In my mind, it was a toss-up between Vettel and Leclerc anyway. I thought it'd be a Ferrari there. It just, just went for the wrong one. So
Oh yeah.
It was too far away.
Covers his tracks. Yeah, I thought it'd be Vettel as well.
Well, Freddie, let's hear your predictions then.
Bottas pole, he was a 10th off. Hamilton win, that happened. Sainz 6th. He wasn't 6th. He was 10th. So, yeah. Got one.
Not great.
I got one as well. But, I said Verstappen would win. And I don't think I'm going to predict anyone that isn't Hamilton or Bottas to win a race this year. I've said that now.
I don't think I'm going to predict anyone other than Hamilton, to be honest.
I don't think we guessed that you would predict someone else, Adam. I wouldn't have thought that from you.
Nigel did go close. He put Nigel in. He put Albon in.
Nigel,
he put Albon in 6th.
It's close,
and he was close. So yeah, you know that.
But. It was. I mean, a lot of it's pot luck with this midfield at the moment. I mean, look at Red Bull up and down, Ferrari side to side,
back to front,
spinning around. You do the hokey cokey. It's just a bit. It's such a weird midfield at the moment, guys. I mean, we've got a dominant team at the front, and then we've got a midfield moving around like there's no tomorrow in terms of pecking order. I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's very exciting. I mean, I'm just ignoring Mercedes now. I know they're going to go on to win and dominate, but if we ignore them, and if we didn't have Mercedes in the championship, it would be fantastic. Because we just don't know who's going to be fastest, and really it's coming down to the drivers. It's coming down to the strategy from the team. Those are the two big factors, because the cars are so close between the midfield. It seems that whoever maximises will get a very good result.
I'm hopeful of seeing more teams on the podium this year.
Yeah,
because it seems Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen are kind of seem to be the top three on most weekends, but all it takes is one of them to have a problem, and then you've basically got anyone out of Albon, the 2 Racing Points, McLaren, even Ferrari, Renault, they're all kind of got the potential to be there. So I think, that could be something to watch.
It feels weird. Feels weird calling the midfield the team fighting for second in the constructor. Yeah. That's where Albon really is, isn't it? So,
I'd say I wouldn't class Red Bull as the midfield because of Verstappen kind of ringing.
I would if they're qualifying 1.3 seconds off the Mercedes.
Yeah,
I think
you can't not call that midfield.
Well, I think they're their own category at the moment, or at least Verstappen's his own category. But I don't think you put Verstappen on the same level as Perez or Sainz. I think you put him a cut above in the next.
Well, for me, I think Racing Point is slightly better than Red Bull, and I think we're going to see that at Silverstone and Spa because they've got the Mercedes engine and they look very strong in the high speed corners. So, yeah, I think Racing Point, like I said, they're going to get podiums surely, and there will be 1 or 2 races this year where the Mercedes mess up somehow. We could see a surprise winner like Lance Stroll winning in a race. How mad would that be?
It is. I think Racing Point, yes, they've got good kind of pace in terms of, when we talk about them, we say, yes, they've got good pace, but they've not kind of shown that in terms of putting it together into a really strong race.
Lance Stroll's race today was incredible.
Yeah, but over the 2 Austrian rounds, they kind of, weren't mixing it kind of as much as they would have hoped. And as I say, I just
but only because of a wet qualifying in the Styrian race. Perez still came from 16th to 6th at the line, even with front wing damage. And the race before, Perez only didn't get a podium because of speeding in the pit lane. And if he had done,
he was still off.
He was still off, yeah, but he was still off. But if he wasn't overtaken by Norris at the end, and he probably would have put up more of a fight if he didn't have a 5-second penalty. I think he would have been 4th or 3rd in that race.
In the first Austrian race as well, with strategy, Racing Point got it wrong with Perez because Red Bull pitted Albon. If Racing Point pitted Perez and they went on to softs, Perez would have been in Albon's position, and if Perez might have been able to get past Hamilton and then Bottas, he could have even won the race, really, in my opinion. So, I think Racing Point have a match for Red Bull this year.
I think it's all these could have at the moment that is making me. That's why I'm kind of thinking, actually they're not quite at that level because Albon kind of could have had a race win, to start off with. I think there's always things. Verstappen retired, so there's kind of all these things that would have, could have, whatever. But I think for the moment, I don't think for the moment, based off what we have seen and what has happened, that I wouldn't put Racing Point.
Yeah, but if Verstappen was in the Racing Point car, do you think he would get a better or similar or worse result than he's got now?
I think it'd be slightly worse. Or I don't have enough faith of what I've seen to say that he'd get better.
I think the Racing Point as a car hasn't shown much weakness apart from the wet performance that they did deal with in pre-practice 2 here in Hungary. Not here, we're not here. At the Hungary race. They did deal with that. They did a lot of running in that practice session because they want to deal with that. The only weakness there was the wet performance for them. Their race pace, they haven't had any qualms with that, any issues. Whereas Red Bull have had an unsteady car that was so obvious this weekend that in the dry and the wet, they were spinning around all over the place. So I think Racing Point have shown better over 2 tracks than Red Bull have over 2 tracks.
I think when I see Racing Point get a better result than both, or I know they did in Austria, but kind of on merit, I think if they can beat both Red Bulls, then I'll say yes, definitely.
Yeah, but I think it comes down to the drivers. Yeah, because Verstappen, for me, if you put Verstappen in the Racing Point, he will be similar to where he is in the Red Bull now. So that's why I think they're on par, because it's going to be difficult to beat Max if you're Lance or Sergio Perez. So, yeah, It's good. It's a good argument and
Yeah,
debate.
it's a good little debate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
End
is.
of.
And yeah, to touch on to end then, I think we can disagree on the pecking order because I think that's how the pecking order is for the midfield at the moment.
Yeah.
It's not set. But we can agree that there's one man who's already favourite for the title, and that's Lewis Hamilton.
Latifi. Oh no. Sorry.
Do you think
Upgrade to silver?
any big news? Do you think any big news will come out over this week? I guess before we record our next one on Thursday, do you think any big news will come out? Because there is a bit about there's driver market, the Racing Point investigation.
Well, the Racing Point investigation, they said yesterday about 10 days or so. So the Tuesday, Wednesday, coming into the British Grand Prix week, they're aiming to have a answer on Racing Point then for the brake ducts. We don't know if they're going to protest them. Renault are going to protest them for the Hungarian Grand Prix as well. That's a possibility because they've only been protested for one race. And I think we'll get an answer from that in about 2 weeks, coming up to the British Grand Prix. You can never tell with Formula One though, can you? There's always going to be something rumbling. There's always discussions. We've seen how quickly the Sebastian Vettel to Aston Martin rumours just leapt up into offers on the table, stories in the German press. So that basically was a non-entity as a story a week ago. We have no idea what's going to come up, and I like it. I like that a lot.
I do think there'll be a driver announcement in the next few days, which isn't. Really? I guess it could be kind of, I don't know. It could be kind of more disappointing, in terms of kind of lower key.
I think they're just all going to be sleeping a bit for that.
Lower key one, but I think we'll see.
Without going off topic, I think Vettel has got two options: Red Bull or Racing Point, and I think he's going to wait to see what happens with Racing Point and their car. Then he'll decide.
Right.
But we can talk about that next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, we can. So yeah, that's all then. We got. Ow! Just whacked my arm on the table.
Anyone who's watching on YouTube would have saw that.
Yes.
So thank you very much.
Yeah, let's plug the YouTube. Go and give us some views and watch me in pain. So
subscribe if you want to see Freddie in more pain.
Yeah. I don't think we've got anything else to say. We've said subscribe. You can like it if you want.
We've got a Twitter up and running.
We've got a Twitter up and running.
The latest news from it's at Winging It F1, and we'll be adding a bit more to that, kind of designing it a bit more, and putting all of that together, and all of the news will be coming off there. And then we've got our own personal Twitters where we'll also be posting about the podcast. So mine's at Adam Dickinson 01.
I'm Fred Coates 1999.
I'm at Nigel C Journo.
And we chat about F1 on there quite a lot, and you'd expect that really. You can find the audio versions of these podcasts. We've got them on Acast, who are our podcast provider. You've got it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. And if you want a more on the go experience, like we've said, we're going to do another podcast, sort of a roundup of some news and a sort of prediction on driver market, which has been, the discussion has already moved on completely from Fernando Alonso's return. But we will touch on that because that is an insane announcement. We've got Sebastian Vettel's motions. We've got the Ferrari Driver Academy. We've got so much to talk about, and there's so much to come back for. So I can't wait to see you guys again. Adam, thanks very much for today. Nigel, thank you as well. Been a brilliant conversation today, and hopefully we can keep it going. So thanks very much, guys.
Cheers, Freddie. Bye.